Hello and welcome to this art therapy presentation for kidney disease. My name is Bailey Oake and I will be presenting this workshop for you today. So please sit back and enjoy as I go through this presentation about mental health, art therapy, and coping strategies that you can do for your health. So I'll go through a little introduction about what to expect in this presentation and a brief overview of mental health and how that impacts your health and wellness. I'll also introduce art therapy, which is what I practice and what I share in the work that I do. Some coping strategies that you can include in your life, as well as using some art materials today by doing some art therapy prompts at the end of this presentation. So a little introduction and recommendations for today for this presentation. I just encourage you to remain open and curious as I'm speaking. Feel free to write down any questions that might come up as I'm presenting. If you do have questions, you can reach out to me afterwards. Happy to hear from you. If you want to reach out, there'll be a slide at the end with my contact info. If you have available at home just some basic art supplies, that can be a sheet of paper and a pencil or pen, or maybe you're somebody who practices art and you have more than that, markers, paints. Feel free to gather some of those things. You can gather those now or pause and bring them back. I just have a small little sketchbook, some markers and pencils and pens with me, and I'll be demonstrating as well. So even if you don't want to participate in that portion of the presentation today, you can always do it some other time. And also, always like to mention, as we talk about anything with our mental health, sometimes that can stir things up, bring things up. So just to take care of yourself and pause if you need to, or reach out to someone if you need to. So just a little bit about me. So as I said, my name is Bailey Oake. I'm a counselor, registered counselor in Nova Scotia, and I'm a professional art therapist as well as a registered psychotherapist in Ontario. So I've worked with people in long-term care for about 5-6 years in Ontario. That was my background in a lot of the work that I did. I'm now in private practice full-time and supporting people with chronic health issues, anxiety, trauma, and other mental health concerns. And I really approach my work in supporting people and making meaning of whatever it is that's happening in their lives, what's coming up for them, and helping them to explore that, to process that, and to find new ways of being with whatever it is that life's presenting them with. So a little bit about mental health. This could be repetitive things you've heard before, but I like to start off by just getting in that framework and thinking about, what is our mental health and why is it important to talk about it and reach out to people who might be able to support us with our mental health. So the more that we learn about the human brain, the more that we can really we've started to learn more in the mental health field about the connections between how our brain and body are so interconnected. And that's really important to pay attention to that. And oftentimes in the work that I do, it is helpful to bring clients to a place where they do start to understand how their mental health is impacted by their physical health too. So it's really important to support people in that and recognize that, hey, big emotions and big things in our lives can transform us, and it is important to talk through that. So mental health is health. And anyone who has been diagnosed with an illness really understands the stress that can have on our lives. anxiety, depression, financial strain, and relationship strain it can also have. So when something life-altering is happening, it really makes sense that our emotions would shift with this new experience and that maybe it would bring up even other things that have happened in our lives that also have an impact on how we're coping with this new situation, whether it be a new diagnosis, a family member's diagnosis. Um, so it's important to, to be aware of those things and to work through them as they come up. So just a little bit about how I sort of see how illness can have an impact on us and our mental health. So living with illness, um, when it becomes part of your life, you might live in an unknown. You might find it difficult to explain your illness or your loved one's illness to others. Um, you might have a new meaning or purpose in life, meaning things might have really shifted for you. You might not have the same um, interests. Your life might look a little different. You might develop a new identity, and you probably will find yourself discovering a new normal. What is life like now with illness than it was before illness? Um, you might experience new emotions that you haven't experienced before. You might reprioritize aspects of your life, and you might also grieve aspects of yourself. So, seeking support, regardless of how illness has impacted you, seeking support from a mental health professional can make a difference on how you adapt to living with illness. You might be diagnosed with illness or be a caregiver, friend, family member, or colleague of someone with illness. Seeking support and gaining skills and understanding can help build the circle of support surrounding someone's illness. And I do think it's really important to acknowledge that this presentation and any resources should really support the whole circle of someone who's facing illness because their mental health is impacted as well as the person with illness. And really together creating that circle of support, finding a place where you feel open to talk together about how everyone's feeling can really be the foundation, the groundwork to supporting mental health as it presents itself with illness. So a little bit about what art therapy is. Um, you might have heard of recreation therapy, music therapy. There's lots of alternative therapies to talk therapy. So art therapy is one of those. So essentially, it means someone who's trained in art therapy brings artwork, art making, and creativity into a counseling or talk therapy session. And the thing that's nice about that is oftentimes, especially when you're facing something big, a big change in your life or health issues, pain, chronic pain, it's very difficult to put that into words at times. So art is one avenue of how to express that without using words. Some of these things are inexplainable, difficult to find ways to communicate what that is about. So creating art in a session with a client can be a really supportive way to get that out, to process what that is in a different way outside of speaking about it. Um, and in the presentation, I'll be showing you some ways that you can even do this on your own at home by doing some drawing, some art making on your own, or maybe with a family member or caregiver. So this is a definition of art therapy through the Canadian Art and Therapy Association. So art therapy combines the creative process and psychotherapy or counseling, facilitating self-exploration and understanding. Using imagery, color, and shape as part of this creative therapeutic process, thoughts and feelings can be expressed that would otherwise be difficult to articulate. So, just a little bit more about how art therapy helps. So, certain art materials can positively impact overall health and well being by relaxing your nervous system. And using an example of just the sensory aspect, um, you know, often I use the example of kids just sort of naturally playing and exploring art materials or tactile things. It helps to regulate their nervous system. So, oftentimes, adults or even teens sometimes lose that expression of just playing with art materials or being in nature playing with natural materials. So getting back into doing things that actually physically you're touching and feeling can have an impact on sort of regulating, relaxing the nervous system. An example might be watercolor. It's really fluid and it flows across the page. It can really, you can feel that sense of relaxation. Other people respond really well to clay because it's tactile. You can feel it, you can squish it, and that also helps to connect with your breath work and relaxation. It can help process emotion because really what we create is similar to what we share about our experience and our story of who we are. Um, so, this is important because art images can share a lot about what's happening inside. So, I also like to acknowledge that art can be really intimidating for many people, and this is often because there's a belief that it should really look a certain way. You can only be an artist to create art. So for today's presentation, and if you really enjoy doing this art therapy practice that I'll give you today, um, just to consider it's not really about the product. This is for you, right? This is just a process. You can rip up the piece at the end. It doesn't have to be something you keep. So really trying to get into that thought process of it doesn't really matter what you create. This is just um, for you to process and to spend some time with yourself and taking care of yourself. And also, just the last point here that creating art can really build self esteem, can broaden your skill set and interests as well. So, if you want to get into doing it more often, sometimes people really have a lot of pride in what they create, and this can be fulfilling for people. So the next section here is to get into some art therapy prompts and some coping skills for you to try with me during this presentation. I'll be doing some demos, so you can also just watch and even just consider if making art is not really something you're interested in. I encourage you when I'm explaining the prompts just to listen and see if the imagery comes into your mind. You don't have to necessarily put it on the page. So just a little disclaimer here. So this will be interactive, and if at any point you're feeling too overwhelmed by the prompts and directives given, just pause, stop the video, or seek some support from a loved one or mental health professional. So I'm going to go through 4 different short prompts. They only take a couple of minutes each to do. Um, and they are mindfulness, self-compassion, boundary setting, and embracing your identity. So those are the 4 different areas we are going to look at in the prompts today. The first technique we're going to do is a mindfulness technique. So I'm going to guide you through a gentle guided meditation, just very short. And then from that, we're going to do a little art surrounding that. So if it feels okay to close your eyes or gaze at the floor, I want you to just settle in to whatever space you're in. Okay, and taking some nice deep breaths with me. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And again, in through the nose and out through the mouth. So I want you to take some time and while you're sitting here, just imagining bringing into your body a shape or color that feels healing to you, or a symbol. Could be anything that feels like it brings you healing, even just starting with a color. So, what color do you feel is healing to you? And just bringing that into your awareness, imagining it surrounding you. What sort of color is it? What would it feel like? What shape is it? Is it in a particular area in your body? Is it all around your body? Just really connecting to your senses and this shape or color. Once you feel like you've really connected to that, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and come back into the space with me. Okay, so if something did come up for you, we can now turn to the art materials, and I'm just going to switch into a screen where you can see my hand so you can observe what I'm doing and do it with me in your own art making, or just observe mine and do it at another time. So you can get a sheet of paper and any materials that you might have, and just start to create that shape and what it felt like for you. So start with orange. Doesn't matter what it looks like, it can be any shape at all. Okay, so this is something once you create it, you can draw on, you can think about at times, bring it to mind when you feel the need to connect to that. So the next coping skill, activity, technique that we are going to do is a self-compassion technique. And again, I'll ask you to engage with some art materials. I'm going to switch my screen so you can just observe the drawing, and I encourage you to do the same. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is think about how you feel when some self-criticism is coming up, negative self-statements, and all of those things sort of having an impact on our mental health. So I want you to sort of think about maybe what some of those feelings might look like, some of those times when we're hard on ourselves, have high expectations, and what that might look like. So I want you to draw that, scribble that onto the page in some sort of shape on the page. So for me, I'm just going to draw what that might look like. Some of that negativity. Those big expectations that we put on ourselves. should have, could have, would have thoughts. Just putting that down there. Once you have a shape of that, I want you now to think about what is something you can really give to that pain to make it feel good. You know, things that you might do to really give it compassion, care, kindness, and love. What would that need? What would this need? Those times when you feel really bad about yourself or you think negatively towards yourself. What does that need? So let's give it what it might need. So I'm going to surround mine with what I feel it might need. Okay. Right. And the next technique is doing some boundary setting. And when we talk about boundary setting with mental health, um, it's not necessarily about pushing people out altogether, but it's about setting a boundary when things feel too much. And that could be about figuring out, how do I express my needs to someone else and let them know that life might feel different for me now. And I don't think I can always do exactly things the way I used to. And I need to let them know. So we're going to do a little activity just to engage in what is your boundary and what does that look like so that you can kind of envision what a boundary might be for you and how to set that with people when that comes up, when you need to let people know that you need a break, you need to take care of yourself, you need time to yourself, whatever it is you need. We're going to imagine that boundary. Okay. So imagining your boundary. And I'm just experimenting with different types of art materials, and maybe this will encourage you to do the same. So some watercolors are really nice and fluid. So I'm going to envision my boundary here. I'm going to put up when I need to. A big rock in the boundary. So that would be my boundary. I'm going to put up a rock, put a big stone in the way when I need to set that boundary. Okay, and last but not least, we're going to do one more activity just to engage in for coping strategies for your mental health using some art therapy. And this is embracing your identity. So, oftentimes, when a health issue presents itself, um, there's a new identity. And I talked a little bit about grief as one of maybe the impacts of a new health experience. So, sometimes we grieve parts of ourselves have kind of been lost in that, and it takes some practice to accept and get into a place of embracing a new identity. So that's what this little technique will be for you. So I want you to kind of take a little moment here to think about you're growing and turning into something new. What sort of plant do you think you might be? Are you a tree? Are you a rose with thorns? Are you a sunflower? What kind of plant might you be? And maybe what stage is that plant at? Like, is it just been planted in the ground, or has it been growing for quite some time? Um, does it need some watering? Like, really think about what this plant might be and what stage it might be at. So again, I'm going to invite you to turn to some art materials or observe me and try this on your own at another time. So what kind of plant might you be? This doesn't have to pertain to a health journey. It can just be about who you are as well. If you're a caregiver or someone around that's supporting someone with a health kidney disease, then this could also be a good activity for them. Where are they at with this journey? What do you need as well? So these are just the beginnings of some introductions to what it might look like um, for you to engage in some art therapy. And if you're enjoying working on this and you want to continue, just continue to make some art with this. Maybe some of those prompts you felt you wanted to work on longer, you can go back to the art piece and keep working on it and try it in other times as well. So I hope you enjoyed experimenting with some art making for health and taking care of your mental health and wellness. If you do want to reach out to me, my email is here on the screen, baileyOake@baileyOake.hush.com. You can also phone me at 902-794-2396. It's been lovely to have you watch this video, and I do hope that you got some ideas from this, some thoughts on how you might try out some new ways of coping and taking care of yourself, and maybe we will connect again in the future. Thanks for watching. Take care.